6:30 p.m. on Monday, June the 13th. We call this special council meeting to order. And this is a special council meeting called today as a result of the meeting of the joint meeting of the three councils of Augusta, Prescott, and Edwardsburg Edwardsburg Cardinal held a week or so ago. And the purpose of this meeting is basically to debrief ourselves as to the offer that was made to us, Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, to join the town of Prescott and the Township of Augusta in a closer working relationship. So the plan is that the three councils will meet again at the end of the month. I think it's June the 30th has been scheduled, if I recall correctly.
June 29th.
June the 29th. And so we want to have a little bit of discussion about how and what issues will come forward at that meeting. So with those few introductory remarks, I'm going to call for approval of the agenda as presented. And Deputy Mayor Deschamps, I think you have that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that Municipal Council approves the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. And those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. And so we'll go straight to the agenda. Well, actually, item number 3 on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures here this evening? None here this evening. And so then we'll go directly to the action and information items coming forward from committees. And so the first one is the review of the vision and the mission statement that was presented at the joint meeting of the three councils earlier or towards the end of May. So that vision and mission statement has already been adopted by Prescott and Augusta before, of course, we were invited to join them. And there was a motion that came forward at that joint meeting that we would also adopt it. However, that was not actually a meeting of council. So I guess the formality here this evening is that we as a council would join in that vision and mission statement. So the vision and mission statement has been circulated. The floor is open for discussion, if any. Hear any discussion? It's important that we deal with this. I mean, the point is that this is a council meeting. We adopt it as a council issue.
Mr. Mayor, maybe if I may, there's a resolution, maybe if the
I'm happy to support it.
two that sort of moved and seconded at the maybe they could second it, see if there's any further discussion.
I think I have John as the
Okay.
council member as the seconder, but that's fine. So I'm going to move it. So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter. Whereas Municipal Council adopted the principles of the vision statement and mission statement during the Tri-County Augusta Edwardsburg Cardinal Prescott meeting held on May 30th, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that the Municipal Council of the Corporation of the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal reaffirms the adoption of the vision statement and mission statement. And further that the vision statement and mission statement be adapted to include Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal. And further that a copy of this resolution be forwarded to the Township of Augusta and the Town of Prescott.
Very good, very good. Okay, motion is open for discussion. Hearing no discussion, I'm about to call a motion. Those in favor?
Oh, I'm sorry. We're talking both the mission statement and the
Yeah, they're
vision
both,
statement.
yeah, they're on page 2 of 34.
Okay, that's fine. Is the following pages, tri-council meeting, letter of intent, discussed and so on and so forth, is that included with this? With page 2?
No,
Is the other pages going to be dealt with separately?
oh,
And if they are, where?
okay, so the way my agenda is reading, up for discussion right now is the vision and mission statement that appears on page 2 of 34, and it's a standalone item. And I think we could regard pages 3 and onward as kind of the our invitation to join that joint council meeting. So we joined the joint council meeting by invitation, and this mission and vision statement was there when we got there.
Correct.
And the motion came forward at the floor at that meeting, but now it's important that we deal with it as a corporation.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, I'm still not understanding. Where are we going to discuss the letter of intent?
Okay.
Okay, yeah, my apologies with respect to that letter of intent focus discussion. That would fall under 4B, Joint Initiatives Task Force. The resolution was behind that letter of intent. It should have been
Correct.
in front of it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. CAO. I'm happy with moving on the 2 statements, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so I have the motion in front of me. I'm going to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. I'm marking it unanimous. All right, now, so then we're on item 4B, which is the Joint Initiatives Task Force. And as the, I think the letter of intent was kind of lead up to explain what this Joint Initiative Task Force was all about. And it was explained at that joint meeting that this Joint Initiatives Task Force is kind of the driving force that sets the priorities for the vision and the mission statement. And so what we have in front of us here now is on page 7 of 34 is the motion to join the Joint Initiatives Task Force. Now, I don't know how to phrase this, but I take it that as a part of, I take it that as having been invited to join the joint council meeting and having been invited to join this closer working relationship, that invitation will extend now to participate in this Joint Initiatives Task Force, which includes the mayor, the deputy mayor, and the CAO from the other 2 municipalities, and would therefore include the mayor and the deputy mayor and the CAO of our township. And that's what this motion that we have on page 7 of 34 is going to formalize. So that's that's what you're looking for.
That is correct. Good, Mr. Mayor.
So the floor is open for discussion on that one. Go ahead.
Yes, I'm looking at page. It's not marked, okay. Or at least, sorry, it is. It's on page 4, and it's just following down the and it says I don't know, 6th or 7th line down. Grenville municipalities, South Grenville municipalities need to work together. I think the word need is a little strong there. Maybe it should say something like should work together or can work together. But the word need to me sounds pretty heavy on that on that. So I would,
Well,
without further discussion, I would prefer to see that word changed.
well, the problem is that there's no opportunity to change the word because the letter of intent was a letter that was signed by the 3 mayors, and it's really not up for discussion. It's already a thing of the past, if I can put it that way. It's not as if it's a guiding document in any way, shape, or form. It was more designed to shape the invitation to get us to the joint council meeting.
Thank you.
Councilor Hunter.
I don't really, I think it's, from what I heard out there, it's, looks like we're formalizing something here, but to me, it was a very informal committee. It's going to be bringing recommendations forward, but basically, this joint committee has no power whatsoever. It's got to come back to each individual council. Anything they recommend has got to be brought back. Be passed. I think it's a good process because if nothing else, that's all the councils have better communication, but we know what each other councils thinking. Gives us a place to, let's say, air out differences before they get into the public. But councils can maybe, the joint committee can, got 3 representatives from each township, we've got mayor and deputy mayor, so obviously the mayor and deputy mayor should pretty well have the feeling of what the council feels about different items that they're bringing up at it. So I think it's a good thing that maybe gets rid of bad feelings between council, because one council finds out something at a late date. Something's already in progress. I think that's the way to have a committee that can talk over things and try and get everybody on the same page. Maybe save a little bit of time and money on the way through. Setup that they have on down, that they have different committees and stuff, that they have people from the public joining in on some of the committees there to get some of the feelings from the public and stuff. I think it's a step forward. I don't see that binding on question, the only thing in the whole meeting that bothered me a little bit. Which council mentioned it there, the talk about maybe word amalgamation was mentioned, and that wouldn't fly too far in my field anyway. We need to work together. I don't see amalgamation any place in the future, so my feelings on it. So.
Well, I think if you look on page 5 of 34, those are kind of outlined I'm going to say the 7 kind of initiatives, kind of further defines what it meant by working together. And the way I kind of interpreted the situation was that page 5 of 34 on the right-hand side there, those 7 boxes kind of sort of provide some direction. And I think it's interesting that there are sort of 2 levels of initiative here, because the first is the Joint Initiative Task Force, which is the mayor, the deputy mayor, and the CAO from each municipality. So those 9 become the Joint Initiatives Task Force. Now, again, I'm taking it that we've been invited to participate in that task force. But in addition to that, it looks to me like there are some standalone committees that once we appoint somebody to those committees kind of, they don't make decisions, but they come back to our respective councils. They don't seem to go back and report back to the Joint Initiatives Task Force. They seem to operate on their own, under their own mandates, and the designated members come back to their appointing municipality. Now, that's the way I see this thing laid out, but I can be wrong in my understanding of it. So in any case, the motion that we have in front of us is that we participate in this Joint Initiative Task Force, which was formerly established by the Township of Augusta and the Town of Prescott to discuss opportunities and measure collaborative progress. So that's the gist of the motion in front of us. Further discussion? If there's no further discussion, I'm going to call a question on that motion as well then.
Motion on it.
Yes,
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the municipal council participate in the joint initiative task force formerly established by the Township of Augusta and Town of Prescott to discuss opportunities and measure collaborative progress between the municipalities in favor that the mayor, deputy mayor, and CEO be the designated representatives on the joint initiative task force.
okay, so no further discussion about the call of question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so that motion is carried and it's carried unanimously. Now, then I'm assuming, Mr. Grant, that you now liaise or the three CAOs get together and that sort of comes to pass before the meeting on the end of the month?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. All right, now, just give me a second here to see where I am. Right. So, now we have in front of us and I think we should look at it just for a minute. On page 8 of 34, I'm going to get eventually to 4C, which is the Joint Recreation Committee, the draft terms of reference, but we should look at page 8 of 34 to see what the joint initiatives are to date as identified by Augusta and Prescott. Because as you can see from page 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, we are not included in any of those studies or initiatives. So in that sense, we're joining the party a little bit late. And these initiatives that you see outlined on pages 8 through 16, 17, they're sort of initiatives that are already underway. So I'm just laying that out so that everybody's aware of it. And I don't know how you want to position ourselves at the meeting on the 29th. As it pertains to these initiatives, obviously, we're in no position to upset these initiatives, not that we have any desire to, but we're not included in them. The first is a joint land development needs analysis, which has already been done. And they hired a consultant to do that. You'll see the result of that on what is it, page 9. And then they created 3 economic development strategies. And again, we're not part of that at this point. They adopted the vision and mission statement, which we just adopted. Now they are also in the process of developing a recreation and tourism asset inventory, as we see on page 12 of 34. And we're going to get to this joint recreation committee in at the next agenda item. And you see that if you look on page 13 of 34. Now, Mr. Grant, do we know who they've appointed to this initiative at this point? Because it seems to me that if we're joining this initiative and we're joining it late, we should have some concept of who's already sitting there.
So, Mr. Mayor, with respect to the Joint Recreation Committee,
Yes.
not all members have been appointed from many of the municipalities.
So all the municipalities are in the process of appointing somebody.
That is correct.
Okay, so then that's something for us to think about. Now, is the tourism asset inventory, which is another one of these initiatives, has that committee been mandated yet. I mean, do they have a committee to do that, or is it in the same state as the Joint Recreation Committee, waiting for appointees?
Mr. Mayor, I am not sure that there's actually a committee with respect to the recreation and tourism asset inventory. I believe it's just being worked on at staff to develop that complete asset inventory.
Okay, so we can assume that at this point, neither one of those committees have been struck.
For sure, the Joint Recreation Committee has not met as of this time.
Okay, so then one of our first tasks will be to appoint someone. Now, do we know? Well, let's turn there for a second then to this Joint Recreation Committee and the draft terms of reference, which is actually the next item on our agenda. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but this draft terms of reference.
Page 14.
See, that's where I'm having a bit of trouble, because on page 12 to 34, it says created. That's past tense, an inventory of all tourism and recreational assets found in the municipality. So it says created, so it implies that it's been done in past tense. And there was something said at the meeting about, I didn't realize we had so many parks. So,
Mr. Mayor, I believe that Prescott and Augusta have, the staff have developed their asset inventory within their own municipality.
okay, so now since the joint meeting, has there been any communication asking us to submit to that initiative?
Mr. Mayor, we can certainly, if council's interested, we can certainly put that on the list to completely develop and provide an asset inventory from our end to add to Augusta and in Prescott.
Okay, and the draft terms of reference are there. But that's for the Recreation Committee. It looks like one elected member of council from each participating municipality, one member of staff from each participating municipality, and then 3 community members from recreational organizations. It doesn't say from each municipality.
Yes, it does.
Right?
Yes, it does.
Sure it does.
Oh, yeah, 3 community members from each municipality from recreational organizations. So that means it would be up to us to appoint 5 members to that committee. Is that the way I'm reading that?
That would be correct.
Now, nothing has happened since the joint meeting with that.
That is correct. My understanding is that Prescott and Augusta have not appointed all of their representatives for that committee.
Okay. Defines how the quorum will work, defines who the resources will be. The Joint Recreational Committee on page 14 of 34. The Joint Recreational Committee will make recommendations that will be brought back to each participating municipality for consideration. Okay. Not getting much in the way of feedback here, folks.
I'd like Mr. Mayor, if you, our recreation coordinator here, Mike, have you had any discussions with either one of the facility managers from either one, either of them ever approached you any other?
No, I have not had any discussion whatsoever. I've not been approached from anyone from Augusta.
So I assume that our council facility manager would be staff member that would be on this committee.
I think that's a good assumption. It certainly, the mandate certainly implies that, doesn't it?
Suppose that somebody with
The only thing that I don't think we're picking committee members.
No,
tonight.
I just
think
say,
we're all we're doing is approving the words of reference.
Okay, so we see that that's a task that will lie ahead of us. And,
Well, I think somebody has a recommendation.
but what type of recommendations?
It's just to accept the terms of reference. I'm not sure who has it.
I do. That would be for the Joint Recreation Committee. Yeah, okay, well, we can deal with that. There's a couple of other things in here that.
The other part, the asset management portion was for future marketing. Am I wrong in thinking that when we, wasn't one of the items that was discussed that there would be sort of a co-marketing initiative? And that was why they were coming up with historical sites and parks and sort of that whole inventory to sort of post it up and let everybody know where all those things were.
Through the mayor, that is the basic concept of what would be happening in the three municipalities throughout the year, so that everybody's sort of aware of those activities, and potentially if there are, we'll call it weekends open or slots available, right, that it might be an opportunity for somebody to pick so that we're collaborating more than we are competing against those activities, or potentially allowing residents that may be visiting the area to know that there are 3 or 4 of the activities or events happening in the local proximity.
Yeah, and through the chair again, I didn't get the idea that portion of it was to be a committee. I thought that was going to be a staff function to come up with those assets, and then ultimately, I think, post them on our websites. They would post ours, we would post theirs, and share collaboratively so that we didn't end up overlapping fireworks and events. That's sort of the way that I understood the discussion. I didn't think that it was coming down to a committee.
I think that's all under the joint task force committee, wasn't it? Staff members on that committee, but that's what they're discussing at the time there, all the tourist activities and different things, and that it'd be that every township putting an ad, we got such and such a place, historical place to go, that it'd be one, instead of 3 townships paying for three ads in 3 different papers, be 3 ads by the 3 townships, and hopefully a split cost, but save, instead of everybody put the same ad out. Fireworks in Canada Day, there'd be one ad with fireworks are here, and here in Canada. So across the board. Yeah.
Okay,
So I thought we'd be saving money.
So that's-
So
Not as a completely separate thing for just those things.
That's kind of a little bit different than the Joint Recreation thing.
yeah,
So it has a different thrust, like. The Joint Recreation Committee here, we've got the draft terms of reference for it. But for the tourism assets, we don't seem to have much of an understanding as to how that.
I don't think that's a separate committee. As the mayor said, I think that's just all part and parcel of the staff working together on service. Okay, so recreation, I think, main thrust of it might be that making, instead of duplicating things, if we're having a ball down fixed here, we don't need another ball down built over there. Worked out how many diamonds and stuff we're keeping up, and what groups are, how we could work together in that instead of duplicating services all the time. Same pickleball here, if it's not going good here, and we've got Prescott isn't going good, will they get together and they're either gonna have one rink without it, or gonna be in Spencerville for July, and it's gonna be in Prescott for June or whatever, that we wouldn't compete against one another, try to cut the costs down. Yeah.
That's the way I was.
Okay, so, we ready then to approve the draft terms of reference here for this joint recreation committee?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Oh, sorry.
Did I hear a motion?
I have, thank you, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself and second by Councilor Cameron that the municipality council is supportive of the draft terms of reference for the joint recreation committee.
Okay, thank you. So are we ready to deal with this then? All right, call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. So now, that deals with the draft terms of reference for the joint recreation committee. But it doesn't get us involved with, in my opinion, what it doesn't get us involved with, it comes on page 17 of 34, where they talk about creating an Augusta Prescott developer package. That goes back, it starts actually on page, starts on page 15. The opportunity for collaboration to market development opportunities to the west and north of Prescott in Augusta Township was identified in the joint economic development recommendation and land needs study. So maybe we don't need to be involved in that, although there are several steps and information that needs to be gathered to help support the creation of a developer package for lands that are west and north of Prescott and Augusta. Now, are we joining in with that? Official plans, zoning and development charges, alignment of Augusta official plan and United Counties of Leeds and Grenville official plan, west and north of Prescott to allow for higher density development, amendments to Augusta zoning bylaw for areas west and north, alignment of Prescott official plan and zoning bylaw with areas west and north, and development charge study and update of Prescott development charges. So what is our relationship to that initiative?
So I think the way that I understand that it would be if we would have our initiatives and like they've worked collaboratively together to get to that point where they're coming up with ways that in the future that they want to push forward and that they're recognizing that there's other studies to be done. I think, natural gas expansion is probably one thing I know that has been mentioned a lot here and that is near and dear. In industrial land development, we talked about the Cedar Grove site. They were supportive of that. There's probably many things. We certainly could identify areas for residential development as well. Ways to work on it with them. But I think we have to identify at some point which ones as a council that we would want to move forward at that joint task force that there'd be ways to work with Augusta and Prescott and support each other, especially if there are opportunities for grants or for funding.
Okay, so in other words,
The work in front of us, I think, is what is just showing what they've already accomplished.
Yeah.
We have to find where we want to fit in
Yeah.
with what they've accomplished and get them to support the things that we want or the initiatives we have in our township, so that when we apply for that gas money or the ICON program for the high-speed internet, that they throw their names behind our applications, and we would we would sort of do the same thing to them. That's the way I see it.
Okay, so that's kind of moving on our own initiatives, but keeping them informed as to what our priorities are.
Yeah, I think that that's, council would move those to you and I, and then when we go to a task force meeting, like we had 4 years ago about recreation, we make our arguments as to what we want, not our arguments, but, our points as to what we want done in our township and how they could help us get those things done.
Well, that sounds like a fair approach, and I think that would be sort of my understanding as to how we would be joining in, if I can put it that way.
Yeah, I think that's a good start.
You say at the bottom of the thing there, could take a similar approach for the land east of Preston and Lynchburg Cardinal, so
Mhm.
to identify it, I know they just went the one way, but go the other way. Include
I mean, we're already doing it, like with
We've already done it.
the hydro one and Rito St. Lawrence. And we already did our, when we're doing the job site challenge, so. And the discussion of cable and Cogeco, we already been there, we did that ourselves, so it's just a matter of piggybacking with the other 2 townships.
Yeah,
And
once,
continue on what we want to work with. Discussion, of course, the money, and I think that's similar where we can expand where, like they said, west, north, and it could be east. It's just a study, that's all it is.
the
it's
whole
a start.
Well, their study is complete.
Their study is complete, but we can piggyback on even with some of that, from the Hydro One, the information that we did from Morrisburg to our industrial park. We could give them information that may help them. The natural gas that's going through our backyard that they're looking at. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that we can help each other with. Natera, I think that's excellent what they're doing.
Yeah.
Getting Natera involved instead of using their water and sewer possibility could be something new out there that they can use. I think that's great. I would love to get involved. in something like that.
They've built fire halls in the last
Yeah,
couple terms. We're
Both
talking
of
about
them.
building fire halls. I
Yeah.
mean, there has to be some way that we can share some information that would result in some kind of cost.
when we look at services and stuff working together, I know 2 councils ago, and on the council, what was there in Preston was signing on for their sewage treatment at the time we discussed about, we got a good sewage treatment operating unit. Propose some, maybe instead of hiring outside ones, that we expand our staff and we look after further. Instead of paying. I think Dave, you were on there at the time, you had it figured out they were paying way more than what it was costing us to operate ours. The fees they're paying for it. We could have, they would have come to us a little sooner than, what was it, 6 months or something, they decided they were gonna change something, like we'd had a year to plan. We could have got staff and took that plant over and run it far more efficient than it was being run at the time, and they were paying, what, pretty near double what it was costing us for operating it, so.
Yeah, and in fact, the RFQ that they put out, we had only something like 3 or 4 weeks to respond to it. And so, I mean, they had, but I mean, again, that's their decision. They decided that they wanted to have their own contractor, and they didn't, they weren't really interested in
At the time, but this.
Expanding our
We want
staff.
to work together, and you sit at a table like this, you can bring it forward and say, well, look at the cost here. Here's our cost to operate our system here, and here's what you're paying over here. It's just a system. Okay, you got more volume, but it's still the same.
Yeah.
Same system that you're operating. It's.
all
shouldn't be
those
that. We can work together here, and we can expand our staff and maybe make a little bit of money off it and cut our cost down, because we pay a share of it there, so the more it costs to operate it, the more bigger our share is, so.
Anyway, that didn't happen, and I mean, all of those things were on the table at the time.
But it could happen,
But-
maybe under this.
Yeah, something we can discuss.
Okay, so I'm now looking then at item 4D, which is this joint municipal drug strategy. And there is a resolution here. Councillor Cameron, I believe you have the resolution. There doesn't seem to be much in the way of briefing note attached to it. So maybe just put the resolution on the floor and we'll focus our discussion on the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Hunter. Whereas in 2016, the municipal councils of Augusta, Edwardsburg, Cardinal, and Prescott supported and formed a municipal drug strategy group for South Grenville that provided a collaboration forum for the planning and implementation of a local municipal drug strategy. And whereas during the regular meeting of municipal council held on May 28th,
May 24.
I'm sorry, May 24th, 2016, municipal council by resolution number 2016-195 supported the municipal drug strategy with a $2,500 contribution funded by a transfer from the policing reserve. And whereas a municipal drug strategy is a crucial part of the community safety and well-being plan, which has been adopted by the municipal councils of Augusta, Edwardsburg, Cardinal, and Prescott. Now therefore be it resolved that municipal council is in support of reestablishing the municipal drug strategy committee and agrees to collaborate with Augusta and Prescott on the initiative.
Okay, thanks very much. So any discussion here?
Yes.
Go ahead. And I see 3 hands.
Yes, is this the committee that during, I think, 1 or 2 previous councils, Carrie Smell, is this the
Yeah.
program she was on?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Now I know exactly what it's all about.
Right. And gosh, I'm trying to think of some of the other players that were involved at that time.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not fully up to speed on this one,
Okay, well,
on who all committee members were.
the only other one that I remember as being involved was the, can't think of his name, the policeman, the ex-policeman, the former policeman, counselor.
Mike Ostrander.
Ostrander. Yeah, he was involved. And at that time, there was 1 or 2 appearances, I guess you could say, by somebody from the Grenville detachment, OPP Grenville detachment. But it didn't, anyway, that's history. And we have now a resolution in front of us where we agree to support the reestablishment of that committee, and we agree to collaborate with them on the initiative. So further discussion is Deputy Mayor and then Councillor Delava.
Just a couple points. So for the Brockville Municipal Drug Strategy, I was asked to, not as a member of council, but as a business person to sit on the committee. I sat through a couple of meetings and decided that it wasn't quite for me. So I've definitely sat through some of the discussions and heard what was said, and I'm supportive of a lot of the initiatives that go through. A lot of them I'm not all that supportive of either. So my concern with this, and I think it's pretty clear in this, but I just want to be certain for my own sake, is that we're not supporting 2016. We're just using it as background that we've been involved before. But the operative is that we are in support of reestablishing a drug strategy committee, and we agree to collaborate with Augusta and Prescott. from 2016. I'm assuming that there'll be new terms of reference and new goals and such set from once the committee's formed. Is that, am I correct?
I would hope so.
With
Well, you answered my question then, because $2,500 of funding in 2016 is a little low, I think, for this. I went to the municipality drug strategy committee with Leeds and Granville and Lanark. Carlton Place. 2 weeks ago. And, I think it's a great thing, especially in our neighborhood, that we really need it. I mean,
We've had people dying in Edgeworth Cardinal from it, so.
it's hard.
We've had people dying from drugs in Edgeworth Cardinal, so.
But yeah, it's really important. That's why I said I'm glad everything's gonna change. It's just that we are agreeing to jump on board with, which we are already a part of, Augusta Prescott and Edwardsburg Cardinal, right?
And 2,500 from Augusta and
I
2,500
realize
from
that.
Prescott.
I realize that.
Yeah, and I think Prescott is the banker, are they not? Or are we the banker?
Through the mayor, we are the banker, and I am probably going to get that wrong, but there was, there was 2,500 from ourselves, and I believe 2,500 from Prescott and possibly 3,000 from Augusta. So one of the two of them contributed 3,000 instead of 2,500.
Is that per year or since 2016?
No, that is upon the initial establishment
Okay,
of that.
okay.
So.
So what you're saying is there should be $8,000 in there?
There is, if I'm correct, I believe there's $7,920.
No, okay, yeah.
Don't remember the sentence.
It was $80 spent on a booth, I believe, in 2016, potentially at the trade show.
I think the problem was that it's just the farm committee, but they did, really never got off the ground and did much, so. We need a committee with new and established and
Mhm.
not to keep kicking a dead horse, but this has been sitting around and it's getting worse and worse.
Well, we've been kicking the can, you're right.
It doesn't, it's not getting any better, it's getting worse. It didn't used to be a big thing in rural areas, but it's getting to be a problem, especially after COVID, so. Of course,
Well, what has happened here is that Dr. Stewart has spoken about this at our mayor's meetings that we were holding once every week. They're sort of going on to a different schedule now. And it'll be once every 2 weeks, and then I think it goes to once a month. But anyway, and Dr. Stewart, of course, is retiring. But Mayor Malank has indicated that he feels that this is something we should get going again, and he's volunteered to chair this committee. Now, there's been no discussion, and I've heard no discussion, and I've heard no comments about terms of reference or mandates or anything at all, or even about the makeup of the committee. I haven't heard anything about that at all. All I've got in front of me is just the broad general concept that you see here in this motion. So this is the motion that we're dealing with, and I can't say to anybody that there's where the terms of reference will go, or what the mandate will be, or how the committee will be put together. But we do know, as we've just heard from Mr. Grant, that there's a little over $7,000 in the account. So I mean, it's not as if you're starting nowhere. There is a starting point. So any further discussion, or did I catch Councillor Dillabaugh? You're next.
No, I was just concerned that I'm that I want to make sure that we're on board. This is just a fact of part of it. So I'm good.
Okay, so I'm about to call the question on the motion before the chair, which is to support the establishment of a municipal drug strategy committee and collaborate with Augusta and Prescott on the initiative. Those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Okay, so that gets us. That's that. Now, I think where we are is on item number 4E. Now, this doesn't have anything to do with the joint committee or the joint initiative of the three municipalities, but because we were calling a special meeting of council, staff wanted the next two items included rather than have them wait till the end of the month. So the first is the Newport Municipal Drain Tender and Contract Services. And there is a recommendation here at the bottom of the page that we award the tender and construction services to Robinson Consulting. So first of all, I think what I'll do is I'll just call the motion forward. Councillor Dillabaugh, I believe you have the motion.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Cameron, Municipality Council one aware that the geotechnical studies RFQ to SNC.
Whoa.
Am I in the wrong one?
You are one ahead.
We're on page 20 of 34.
4E.
That's all I have here in front of me. I got that and the confirmation bylaw, so it must be,
20 of 34?
I don't know about 20 or 34. I just got,
I believe that the resolutions may have been
I think he has it.
between Councillor Cameron and
Yeah.
Councillor Dillabaugh.
okay,
I believe Councillor.
Yes,
Councillor Cameron
yes.
has Robinson.
Oh, I called,
Yes, I
oh, I
do.
called the wrong councillor?
No,
No,
I
no.
incorrectly placed the resolutions in the wrong spot.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
Wrong clerk.
sorry.
I got
yes,
that, sorry.
Yes,
My bad.
So have you got the Newport
do.
drain one?
I do.
Okay, so I'll call on you to bring the motion forward.
Yes, thank you. It's moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh, the municipal council award, I think that's supposed to be. Award the tender and construction services to Robinson Consultants to implement the proposed work on the Newport Municipal Drain at an upset cost of $56,957.50, excluding non-rebatable HST.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, the only thing that, I'm just gonna make a comment about the motion that's on the table. This is a single source contract for all the reasons that are outlined in the briefing note. And if nobody has any objections, I'm gonna call the question on the motion, and then I'm just gonna write a note on the page that it's, council is aware from the briefing note that it's a single source contract, just for the benefit of the auditors, because there was no RFQ or tender put out here. So is there any discussion on the recommendation to award this tender? It's not a public tender. Is there any discussion? Okay, so if there's no discussion, I'm going to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Showing it carried, I'm showing it. Okay, and then I'm going to say, I'm just going to put a note that says a single source contract. As per the briefing note. Okay, so that deals with that. Now, and it's carried, so, and one thing I wanted to just get clarified, Mr. Grant, Robinson makes it pretty clear that that is for the east branch of the Newport drain. And he also makes it clear that the west branch of the Newport drain is a county responsibility. They will end up paying for it. But we're gonna be the administrators. So the cost of that west branch is not included in this award that we just awarded, is it?
Mr. Mayor, there's only a few items that because the with respect to the West Branch, because it's being completed under the Drainage Act, Robinson still will be doing some functions of administration and oversight and signing off on it. So there are some costs associated within their quote that would be actually assessed back to the county.
Says back to the county. Correct. Okay, all right, so that sort of gets that initiative moving forward. And I think then I'm on item 4F. Item 4F deals is page 32 of 34 and leads us to the County Road 2 Water Sewer Project and awarding the RFQ for the geotechnical study that Mr. Grant has talked about in a previous meeting. And so I'm now seeing a recommendation on page 33 of 34. And then do I take it that it's Councillor Dillabaugh that's got this?
Got it.
Okay,
Moved by
so
myself.
yeah, if you will, bring it forward, please.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Council Cameron, that municipal council want aware the geotechnical study RFQ to SNC LaBellin for $56,044.56 plus non-rebate HST to have additional work completed in order to finalize the design engineering for the County Road 2 Water Sewer Project in Cardinal. And 2, to authorize and transfer of the required funds from the Cardinal Water Reserve Fund to finance additional work.
So is there any discussion on this item?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, of the three, of the three bidders, Gemtech, McIntosh Perry, and SNC Lavalin, is SNC just a, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to support the motion, but I just have a question. I don't believe that SNC Lavalin is local. Am I correct in that through the chair to staff?
So, Mr. Grant,
Through the mayor, I am not sure if the director of operations knows
No.
where their head office is.
Through the chair, no, I'm not aware.
Because what I'm looking at, we're looking at about $600 difference. And I know McIntosh Perry is right in Ottawa. And I see that in almost all of the parts, they're a little bit higher than SNC Lavalin. And I'm really wondering why we're choosing SNC Lavalin over McIntosh Perry.
the differential is $3,000.
3,000, not $3,600.
I'm sorry, it's 3,000. You're absolutely correct. Sorry, that's my mistake.
But again,
But,
SNC
well-
Lavalin is a, I mean, head offices are in Montreal, but I'm sure that they have Ottawa.
All right, an upset. I'm not going to expound anything. I want the project to go forward. So
So do we have any relationship with SNC Lavalin?
Mr. Mayor, I have not had any direct relationship with SNC myself.
Same from the Director of Operations?
I would say that would be the same, although I do anticipate that Jewel Engineering has had some type of relationship with SNC in the past.
Okay, and this is just straight geotechnical work, right? Yeah, and we have not yet awarded the overall tender for the project, have we?
Mr. Mayor, no, we have not, because the geotechnical is a requirement to finish up the engineering so that we can be ready to tender that.
Yes,
project.
that's my understanding. right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's every possibility that we will see these same three bidding the overall project. They're all in that same business. It's possible exception of Gemtech.
Potentially, but yes, it's possible they may be some, but yes,
And who is our engineer on this project?
it would be Jewel Engineering.
Okay. All right, any other discussion with regard to the motion? It's on the table here. Hearing none, I'm about to call a question on the motion. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Right, so that concludes that. So now, where am I? On that item number 5, which is council inquiries or notices of motion. So, anybody have anything to bring up here? Yes.
I just have one, Mr. Mayor, I was out Saturday, there was with Cardinal Fire Department on their field day in Athens. Well respected, well turned out from our fire department, and very happy I went. It's a good crowd, and I do believe we're hosting it 2023. I do believe that, right, Mr. CEO?
Through the mayor, yes, I do believe that it is being hosted by the township in 2023.
Lots of work goes involved in that, so good crowd.
And how did our lads make out?
The lads made it okay, third.
3 trophies.
I know, I
I'm
saw
not
the
sure
three
what, I'm not
trophies.
sure what position that
No.
put them in, but I did see a photo of
Yeah.
3 trophies.
So, me too.
Did the mayor have one of them? Or did the chief have one of them?
That was all.
I did not receive a direct message from the chief, so my assumption is that maybe he did not bring home any hardware specific for that race.
Oh, I
That's a tough
see.
race. That's a
That's
tough
township
race.
down, unless I've known that trophy for years.
Anyways, well done. And good crowd.
Any other council inquiries or notices of motion? Okay, hearing none, I'm about to jump on. So under the mayor's report, there are 2 things that I just want to bring to the attention of council. So the first is that Mr. Grant has received the dates for the debriefing of the job site challenge application. And as it turns out, there are 2 dates involved. And I'm gonna let Mr. Grant explain those 2 dates and why there are 2 dates, and then I'll make comment. So, Mr. Grant, I understand from our earlier conversations that there's the first debrief date is for staff only. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, that is correct. And I did receive a phone call just prior to the meeting, and the dates that were originally set have been pushed back. So I don't have a date for either meeting as of right now.
So both dates that we talked about earlier are off the table.
Are off the table as of now. It is, my understanding is that they do not want to proceed with any meetings until after the ministers have been appointed.
Yes, that makes sense. And I was a bit curious when you told me those dates. Okay, so now I want to deal with a larger issue. So I made it very clear to Mr. Grant when he and I were discussing the email that we got that said that they would eventually organize a debriefing session. I said to Mr. Grant, well, I'll make it very clear to them that all of council will want to be involved in the debriefing session. Now, I took it for granted that all of council would want to be involved, which means that we have to hold a meeting with clerks present. Now, if they deem it, or if they ask us to hold that meeting in camera, we'll certainly do that. But I wanted it made clear to them that all of council was to be involved in that. When Mr. Grant and I last week discussed the 2 dates that he had been given, the reason he had been given 2 dates was that the first meeting would be for staff only, which would be for the CAO, our consulting firm, Steve Pence, I guess Lee Sheets, I guess Ann Weir, but the mayor was invited, and kind of shook my head a little bit. Said, well, why would that be? I know the mayor is going to be involved when they hold the last session, all members of council, but I kind of just let it slide off my back at the time. But I'm a little bit ticked off about it because I've been involved in this process right from the beginning. And for them to invite people that we are paying to be there, but we're not allowed to, I mean, Mr. Grant will represent us, but not myself. I just let it slide. So as any case, as you've heard from Mr. Grant, the dates have been taken off the table. I'm assuming that there'll probably still be 2 meetings. I don't know that, but we'll have to see how that proceeds. But anyway, I'm putting my concerns on the table there. And Mr. Grant, I hope you can convey to them that although I didn't make any comment when you initially mentioned it to me, it's kind of rankles me. The second thing I wanted to talk to council about was and this is a public meeting, and I know it's a public meeting, is this proposal that we have for a subdivision. I'm not going to use the name, but in the subdivision south of the village of Spencerville. It's a big chunk of land there that the owner would like to see built into housing. And one of the major issues that comes up is the following. The way the county planner and our planner interpret the provincial policy statement is that a subdivision cannot hook up to a single municipal service. It either must hook up to both municipal services, or it must be built on wells and septics. If this big chunk of land is forced to go to wells and septics, I think their planner tells them they can get about 4 lots, or they'll be big lots. Because again, our official plan, our zoning bylaws, the health unit, everybody else has a minimum size for lots when there's going to be well and septic development. On behalf of the developer and on behalf of the township, I sent a letter to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing saying, do you have any plans to revisit the provincial policy statement? Because in this particular case, the sewer is right there, and it would be cheaper for them to hook up to the sewer than to build a number of septic fields. They could, and also they would be building like 20 residential units or 25 residential units as opposed to 4 or 5. The answer that I got back from the minister did not address the real question of reviewing the provincial policy statement. It was sort of the policy statement is what the policy statement is. It may be a question of interpretation. And the suggestion, although not in the letter that I received from the minister, the suggestion was to the proponents, why don't you go ahead and propose a subdivision, a full-fledged subdivision that hooks up to the municipal sewer in Spencerville, and wait until somebody challenges you. And the developer owners were a bit reluctant to proceed in that manner. But there is another solution. And this is why I'm talking to council about this now. The solution is the following. There could well be a municipal water system associated with that piece of property. If they were to build 25 units there, and believe me, they would be able to build affordable units because of the location and because they own the land, etc. If they built a municipal water system at their expense, the question is, would we as a council take it over as a municipal system? And let me explain to you that there's already one such system in Spencerville. It's at the Maples. The system at the Maples services, I think it's 18 units in that building. And it's built inside the building. It's a separate municipal water system. It has its own chief water sewer operator. The county subs that all out to another company, right?
Jared being an ORO. an
Overall responsible operator, right? And it's a system that's owned by the county, and the county is responsible for it. And they have appointed an overall responsible operator. For those of you that weren't on council at the time, the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, our environmental services department, we were the overall responsible operator ever since I was on council in 2006, up until the point where the county felt that our services were too expensive, and they went out on a tender to see if they could save money, and somebody else bid it and underbid us. And then so a new overall responsible operator was appointed. But the point that I'm getting at is, would council, and I'm just looking for expressions here, not commitments, but would council be interested in saying to these developers, listen, you build a water system, we will take it over and operate it as a municipal water system. Then you'll be hooking up to two municipal water services, municipal sewer, which is right across the creek, municipal water, which is right on the site. And there'll be, you can build as many as 24 units instead of 4 or 5. So I'd just like to hear what council has to say at this point in time. So Deputy Mayor.
So to the second point, yes. And to the first point about the general rounding out of the sewer, I think at some point the sewer line goes by your door, we have to challenge. I certainly see it different than our planner does. Our planner doesn't see it as general rounding out. I certainly do. I think if the sewer goes by your door, you should be able to absolutely be able to hook up. We're building tiny homes and granny suites on undersized lots as it is, to not allow people to hook up and intensify an area with a great proposal and with a sewer line going by seems ludicrous to me and needs to be challenged. So yes, to the water, I think that's a welcome addition, and certainly I think that portion of the provincial policy statement, or at least the way that our planners interpret it, needs to be challenged by us.
Thank you. Councilor Hunter.
I agree with the Deputy Mayor, but like, it's absolutely ludicrous. It can't. This was the problem for years ago when we developed subdivision around the fire hall, end up with 10 lots instead of 20 lots. They could have had in there, and the sewer line runs right through it. They wouldn't have to put a pumping station in there. Yes, it's a pressurized line, but you just need a pumping station in there to hook into it. So that shouldn't have been a big deal. And I discussed here Thursday when South Nation was here. We were talking among them there. And they think, Menegamin thinks it's absolutely ludicrous too.
100%.
You got a sewer line there. They're fighting to keep from polluting groundwater. Why would you want to force people to put a septic bed in when you got a sewer line right there that you can hook onto? Regardless of whether you're a lot safer having 5 wells or 10 wells drilled there drawing water when there's no sewage absolutely no chance of sewage problem, because the sewage is all going to the line. Like, it makes no sense whatsoever, whoever come up with this,
Well, just so you realize that the engineers are telling them that to get into that sewer line, they have to go into the lift station that's already there. So they have to go from the land under the creek or over the creek, one way or the other, into the lift station that's on the north side behind the Drummond building. That's what their engineers are telling them is the optimal way of doing things. So, and you know, that makes a lot of sense because,
It's not the way, but I'm sure there's another way you can go into pressurized lines with going back across. Like all it's doing is they're gonna pump it over there to go into the pump there that's gonna pump it back the other way, so.
Why couldn't you put a new pumping station on the north
Well,
side?
that's what I'm saying,
on the north side,
Well, yeah.
No, you don't-
Or, I mean, the south side.
yeah, well, I mean, technically, I don't know, but their engineers are telling them that that's the optimal way. And because I guess, because it would gravity feed down to the existing pumping station, is that correct? I mean, I don't know the engineering here. But anyway, that's not the issue. The issue is we've got a county planner and a township planner that are interpreting the provincial policy statement as they've been taught to interpret it. Now, just so that members of council know, I mean, county council is pushing back on the planner from a lot of other interpretations. And we're taking at least one issue, which is the issue of aggregate resources. We're taking that directly to the minister because there's an issue there that we won't deal with. We're not gonna play games about. But the other thing is that rather than to get in a fight with a couple of planners and delay the whole process, it just would be so much more sensible to have a water system that was right there. And then you're only drilling one well instead of, if they're proposing, I think at one point I saw a proposal for 4 buildings or 6 buildings, 4 units each, or 4 units, 6 building each, 6 units each, I can't remember, but it would simplify all that and get it out of the way. So, Councillor Cameron.
Yes, and I'm in concurrence with both Councillor Hunter and Deputy Mayor Deschamps. However, the only thing that is of concern to me is how's our capacity? If we go with 24 units are discharging effluent, how's our capacity?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I would just like to take like sort of one step back. So with respect to the minor rounding out, when we're talking about one municipal service and we're talking about private wells. And I think that we would all be remiss if we didn't recognize some of the issues that still remain with individual private wells within Spencerville. So I think it's quite different when you're talking about a communal system, a communal water system or a municipal water system versus 24 individual private wells in a particular area. And that's the interpretation of the planner. So I think we have to be fair on what the planners are pushing back on.
Which
in that
plan is
particular
it?
section. Well, I'm just saying with
That's not how I remember it.
respect to minor rounding out.
I mean, that went through our committee, the CDC, for this subdivision the first time. I certainly don't remember it as being an issue with the wells. I remember it being an issue of whether or not we could do septic or whether we could connect it to the line. And the planner said no to the connecting of the line for the sewer because of the provincial policy statement. We read it as, and the committee actually unanimously, I believe, asked for that to be challenged back to the planner. Because I don't think there was one person on the committee that agreed with the statement that it was not general rounding out, or that they shouldn't be able to connect to. And then we haven't heard, we've heard rumblings of it since then, but we really haven't heard much. That certainly hasn't come back to the committee again for a follow-up discussion. I don't remember it being about 24 wells. I remember about it being about whether or not we could connect to the line and the interpretation of the provincial policy statement.
But the issue that Mr. Grant raises is a sensitive one, if I can put it that way, in Spencerville. But
The
again,
24 wells.
I just think we're talking like 4 or 5 different piecemeal items.
Yes.
All in there, and I think that it can
Some discussion.
it can sometimes get, a little off track.
yes.
That's all.
Well, and I'm just bringing it up because I would like to talk to these folks once again and urge them to not give up on the project because, part of what's motivating this is that, there's absolutely no question, there's a horrendous need for housing in Eastern Ontario right now. And we've got 3 developers that are on the edge here. These folks are probably farthest away from achieving anything. The other 2 are working their way through process very slowly, perhaps more slowly than necessary because they're not exactly motivated to go ahead here right now. So any further comments or final comments before I sort of turn this?
I'd still like an
Yeah,
answer.
no, and it was just easy, if I may, Mr. Mayor, I did not answer Councillor Cameron's question, but my understanding from that preliminary engineering that there shouldn't be a issue with respect to the capacity.
Do we happen to have a number on that capacity? Like I know in Cardinal, when we were talking subdivision, we knew that there was X amount of capacity available. Do we have a number on how far we can go in Spencer?
Through the mayor, we certainly would from our reporting. I just don't have that number off the top of my head.
I'll check with you another time.
At this moment, but I can certainly.
I'll
One of the major differential is that we're not treating the sewage.
correct, yeah,
In Spencerville, it's
That's
just going into a lagoon.
right.
There is partial treatment because we do add.
Oh, yes,
So
yeah,
it
yeah.
precipitates out the phosphorus.
We never get near.
I would like that too.
We have, but there was a year, it was just deluged of water. A lot of storm and rain, so we had to have an emergency discharge one year. But that was a really abnormal year, it rained all summer.
I know when we designed it and built it, I was on council. At the time, the fair didn't own the property, but the Drummond bought the west. And that was considered at the time, we considered it, there could be as many as 50 houses built up there, but then it bought up and got taken out of the plan. But when the sewer went in, that was dying, took that into consideration, that it could be extended up to the northwest there to take in that land and
All good drainage in the right direction
it's all
too.
downhill.
All downhill.
With rock, but still
Yeah.
down here, a place to play too. we did all the way up Century.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, I didn't hear anybody say, no, I wouldn't want to get involved in the municipal water system. I didn't hear anybody say that. I mean, there's the other issue with the planners, but let's set that aside for now. And let's just see what the appetite is. I don't know where they're going.
CAO one should be full.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, yes, I do believe that they are in the process of putting together a little bit of a proposal.
Are they?
So we're just waiting, and once we receive some additional information, but
South is put another proposal to us.
it's in the works.
Good here. Thank you.
You finished with your report?
Yep.
Mr. Mayor, so moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that municipal council receives the mayor's report as presented.
Thank you very much. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. And this is question period. We have no audience. There is no closed session. And so I'm looking for the confirmatory bylaw, and I think Councillor Dillabaugh has that one.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, second by Council Cameron, that the bylaw adopt, confirm, ratify matters dealt with by the resolution we now pass, signed, sealed, and numbered 2022-36.
Thank you very much. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. And so the chair is looking for the motion to adjourn. Councillor Hunter.
Myself, the deputy mayor, this council does now adjourn at 7:55 p.m.
Wow.
Thank you very much. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We're adjourned.
Drive home into England.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it was.